Welcome to the Artist Tavern, your place to settle in, and I'm your host Neil. Here, we're all about those essential, often overlooked elements that really empower artists to do their best work. We'll delve into the practical side of art, the stuff you often only see behind the scenes, from tricky business contracts and legal bits to looking after your physical and mental well-being. You know, it's a real privilege to get a glimpse behind that curtain, to witness artists set aside their anxieties and worries about whether their work is good enough and open up and share their personal space with others. That vulnerability, that courage, something we'll celebrate and explore. We'll discuss themes and topics relevant to all artists who love to create and share their art with the world and make their art a full-time career. So pull up a chair, grab your drink of choice, and get ready to join the conversation. Today, we're diving into something that can truly transform your freelance practice. The art of communicating clearly, managing expectations, and setting boundaries with clients. This isn't just about avoiding headaches. It's about creating better outcomes for everyone involved so that you, as a designer or an animator or artist, whatever creative field you're in, will have a clear understanding of the requirements for the projects involved, and you will be able to deliver the expected quality that you have promised. This also assists in helping the client to understand how the working relationship moving forward will benefit them and their business. Overall, it's a win-win situation when you as a designer can set down some boundaries, can enforce them, and you can communicate clearly and manage expectations efficiently and effectively. You do not need to do this by being aggressive or confrontational. This is something that all clients, all high-quality clients, will expect from you as a freelance. So go out there with confidence and set your boundaries, communicate clearly, and manage your expectations. It will build stronger client relationships, and it will lead to returning clients, and it will lead to greater satisfaction on both ends of the conversation. So let's talk about why this topic matters so much. As freelance designers, we're not just creators. We're also business owners, project managers, relationship builders, portfolio liaison agents, or whatever fancy words the corporates like to throw at the titles nowadays just so they can seem relevant. But anyway, as a freelance creative, you have to fill all of the roles for your brand or company because you have not hired anyone to fill these roles for you. So you do your own social media content creation, community management, marketing strategy, admin for your taxes, your own budgets. Everything you as a freelance creator do, you have to do yourself. So being able to communicate clearly with clients directly impacts the quality of our work, our professional reputation, and our bottom line. I've been freelancing alongside my full-time job for over a decade now, and I can tell you that the difference between my early years, where I've had endless scope creep, unclear expectations, unhappy clients, and late-night revisions, working weekends and holidays, applying feedback from clients, and just being in an overall cycle of never-ending trouble, to now where projects run a lot more smoothly and I have clients that are a lot more happier with my output and I have clients that are returning clients. The biggest difference comes down to having mastered, well, I haven't mastered them, but I am quite good at it, I would say so myself, if I can be a bit cocky. But mastering these three skills we'll be discussing. So let's break it down to three main sections. First one, communicating clearly. Second one, managing expectations. The third one, setting and enforcing boundaries. While these overlap quite a bit, understanding each one separately will help us implement them more effectively in our day-to-day work. So diving right in, part one, the power of clear communication. Let's start there. It sounds straightforward, doesn't it? Just say what you mean, straightforward, to the point. I mean, sounds easy, right? But in practice, especially when creative work is involved, it can be surprisingly complex. Clear communication between you and the client begins before you even take on a project, before you even send over a quote. Clear communication starts from that very first email that you receive or send to your client to discuss any future products or projects. It's about asking the right questions, actively listening to what the client wants, and articulating your understanding back to them. An example from my own experience is a few years ago. In my freelance capacity, I had to do video content for a personal trainer. The client, personal trainer, they told me they want something modern, clean, and they want to be like Apple. Now, those words and phrases mean different things to different people, and it can mean almost anything without the right understanding of why those words are being used. So instead of just saying, brilliant, starting the work, I ask some follow-up questions. When you say you want to be like Apple, what aspects of Apple do you particularly like? Or are there any other websites or content pieces or social media accounts that you particularly like or dislike? This deeper dive, accompanied with research, helped me understand that by this client's phrasing of being like Apple, they meant they wanted to be memorable and they wanted to become a leading authority in their space. Ultimately, it came down to not just the design decisions or the content creative decisions, but also the strategy behind their content would be affected. This deeper dive helped me to understand that they are a client who is very ambitious. They are a client that wants to set a standard, not just for themselves, but they also want to leave a mark. And we rolled. After we had that understanding, projects flowed a lot more easily. Creative decisions were easier to make, and eventually approval of projects happened a lot faster because myself as the video content creator and the client were aligned with the goals and objectives that each of us wanted to accomplish. This also helped me to understand some critical design thinking into what they needed for their content creation. It wasn't just the sake of creating content for creating content. Every piece of content I created for them had a purpose, it followed a strategy, and it served a larger marketing content plan over a long-term duration. And both of us benefited from the content. He also enjoyed a lot of good content on his platforms, and he attracted a lot of clients and customers. So clear communication isn't just beneficial for you, it's immensely valuable for your clients as well. When clients feel heard and when they feel understood, they develop trust in your process. They're more confident that you'll deliver what they need, which reduces their anxiety throughout the project. And it helps them to feel at ease when you suggest something that they might not be familiar with. Clear communication will definitely help build that relationship which you will need with your clients in order to develop great work. Quite often, you'll see clients who don't exactly know how to say what they want, but they've seen examples of what they like. Oftentimes, you will also see these same clients that don't exactly know what they want until they start seeing options. By communicating clearly and guiding them through your thought process, you're actually helping them clarify their own vision. This collaborative clarity leads to better designs and more satisfied clients. Another aspect of clear communication is documenting everything. This doesn't mean bureaucratic paperwork or red tape. It's about creating a shared reference point for decisions and agreements. An example of how you can implement this is after every client meeting, you can send a follow-up email summarizing what was discussed, decisions that were made, and your next steps. You could even take this an additional step further and create a live document that you and your client or clients can access to view project status updates and track project status. Something like a Kanban flow board works really well for this. Apps like Trello allow you to create project status boards that are accessible to public or accessible to members that have been invited to the board. Trello is amazing and also has a great free plan, and this is not a paid promotion. I use Trello for myself and I love it. Eventually, you might find other projects that you prefer, like Asana, Monday, ClickUp, Jira, whatever project, even if it's just a Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet. Find something that works for you and you can use that. The documentation serves several purposes. It reduces misunderstandings between you and the client. It creates accountability on both sides. It provides a timeline of a project's evolution, and it gives everyone peace of mind. It creates transparency, and it builds trust. Clients appreciate this level of organization because it shows professionalism and makes them feel that their project is in good hands. I mean, don't you love just being able to live track a parcel that you've been sent? Pop in your code, you can see where the parcel is going. Exact same situation. You are giving the client a means of following where their money is going. And for you, it's protection against the infamous "I thought we agreed on something else" scenarios. Now, a story here from my experience. I worked with another client who the agreement was to create content for the month ahead, not to create content for the month we are in. So if it was April, I would be making May's content in April. At this time, I did not have the elaborate paperwork or documentation or anything I just mentioned here. And I received a message from the client asking where the content is for this current month. So I was like, we produced it last month. And he's no, all that content is already live. We posted all of that last month. So this month's content has to have been produced already for this month. A few messages later and a few calls later, the misunderstanding was cleared up, but it still created unnecessary friction. Friction that could have been avoided early on by a documentation process like the one I described here. The client and I never really went into arguments. Once all the confusion was resolved, we carried on working like normal because we were both adults. Now getting into part 2, the art of managing expectations. Perhaps this could be one of the most crucial skills in your freelance toolkit. Managing expectations starts with being realistic about 3 things: timelines, deliverables, and results. It's quite tempting to promise the moon and stars to win over a project, but if over-promising and under-delivering consistently, you will eventually create disappointment, and you will have clients that just do not have anything good to say about you, and it will cost you more in reputational damage than it will cost you in financial damage. I've learned over the years, promise realistically what's within my capabilities and capacity. And when I can, I will deliver a bit over and above. If I think a logo design will take 2 weeks, keep in mind this is just the design, excluding all of the phases beforehand. I might quote 3 weeks for the design process. It builds in buffer time for me for unexpected revisions or technical issues. We all know that computers love to smell fear and to become problematic. That's why you should never ever let your computer know that you're afraid. A project at 99.9% completion, designer superstition, there will always be a failure. So buffer for all of those moments. When I deliver in 2, maybe 2.5 weeks, and I told the client it would take 3 weeks, sometimes maybe 4 weeks, the client is pleasantly surprised because they receive their product or project earlier than they expected, meaning they have material ready and they can go to market when they are ready without needing to follow up with me. I've experienced time and time again in full-time jobs where I was in the client's role and I would constantly be chasing designers for work I need because of my schedules. And then I needed to move my schedule around more times than I can count because the service providers I hired were not delivering and were not up to task. Eventually, I let go of all of them and found different service providers. That's another aspect about managing expectations. If your client knows what is going on with their project at any given time, or have a means of accessing an update without needing to chase you, it will build further trust in your relationship. The same goes for project outcomes. It's important to be honest about what design or animation or illustration can and cannot achieve. A new website might increase user engagement and improve user experience, but it won't necessarily double sales overnight. Setting realistic expectations about results builds credibility and fosters long-term trust. Say, for example, you need to create artwork for a campaign. You know that a campaign needs to run for a certain time frame before it can be regarded as an effective campaign. Managing the expectations with the client, telling them your campaign will run for this duration. I will be able to provide assets X, Y, Z during this time frame at these dates is a lot better for you than, cool, we can deliver everything by this day. Done. Breaking down the deliverable communication will help the client also feel at ease knowing that what they're receiving is relevant to their needs when they need it. For clients, this kind of expectation management is actually deeply reassuring. They've probably had experiences with vendors who promised big, delivered small. I worked with an agency once which offered a service to one of their clients and they could not deliver. I won't go into details, but I can tell you that the fallout of that resulted in people losing their jobs and their livelihoods. It's another reason for expectation management being done accurately and realistically is important. When you're upfront about timelines and processes and outcomes, clients can plan accordingly and feel confident in the partnership that they build with you. Another key aspect of expectation management is educating clients about your process. Design isn't magic. It's a structured approach to solving problems visually. When clients understand your process, they're more likely to respect it. I always take time at the beginning of a project to walk clients through how I work. The research and discovery phase, the concept development, the feedback and revision cycles, finalization and delivery, even going so far as assisting with ensuring that the files are up to specifications if there are any technical requirements from printers or media publishers. I explain why each phase matters and what I need from them at each stage. This education empowers clients to be better collaborators and helps them value the expertise they are paying for. And it helps them to respect the craft a lot more. Remember that most clients hire designers specifically because this isn't their area of expertise. They may not know what makes a good logo or what's involved in building a responsive website, but they do know how to do their job. And that's where you come in as a designer to help them with the design part, which they are not clued up on. By guiding them through your process, you're providing additional value beyond just the final delivery. And it also helps your clients to understand better for future projects, so that when they brief you in the future with a new project, they'll know that you have certain requirements that needs to be in place. And you might be pleasantly surprised to find that project 2, 3, or 4, maybe even project 5, or all of the projects after project 1 have all of these requirements in place before you have even opened your email. So let me share a story about this as well, because I seem to like to tell stories. I once worked for a startup founder who was initially frustrated by how long a project was taking with another service provider. The other service provider, I do not know who it was, where they were, or what they were doing, but I do know that the project they were hired for was handed over to me. The business owner was frustrated because the project was taking longer than they had budgeted for or planned for, and they were receiving very poor service in regards to communication, and they had no updates within a 30-day time frame. Now that for me is highly irresponsible and unprofessional. So instead of just pushing ahead, promising to take over the project and deliver the project, I took a step back. The business owner and I scheduled a call and to discuss the project. I asked questions about his frustrations to understand where he was as a business, but also as a person. Because it's not just a business you're dealing with, that is a person on the other end of the call. They have their own frustrations, stress points, and their own objectives that they need to accomplish. And you, in your designer capacity, are there to help them. So after learning about these pain points, I could navigate the situation and explain why each step we will be taking in the process or forward makes a difference, how our research would inform concepts, and how exploring multiple directions would lead to a stronger final result. By providing this feedback and by providing all of this information, they became engaged in this process and they started collaborating with the process. And it provided excellent feedback that improved the end result. We ended up finishing the project within 3 weeks, as opposed to his current project that was taking 2 to 3 months. As such, after the project was finished, I actually received another call not long after from another client, someone who had never worked with me before, but they were referred by my previous client who I had assisted with this project and who I had helped resolve their frustrations. So doing good work by one client has a very large possibility of leading to new work from other clients. So now, finishing up part 2, going into part 3, boundaries. Setting and enforcing boundaries. The final piece of this puzzle. It might sound restrictive, but good boundaries actually create freedom and clarity for everyone involved. Boundaries in freelancing come in many forms. Working hours and availability that you can assist, your scope of services, your revision limitations, the channels and you use for communication and the response times, also payment terms. All of these are clear boundaries that get determined during the contract phase, and it helps the working relationship. There's not a restriction, not a bureaucracy, it's not red tape, it's not, oh, now I'm going to get you. These are terms and conditions within your contract. These boundaries are there to help you and the client. Now let's start talking about how to establish these boundaries effectively. First, they should be clear from the beginning of your relationship. They should not be introduced later down the line or while the project is midway or almost finished. They need to be in place before you even start designing. Your contract should spell out the number of revisions included, your working hours, and how additional work will be handled. Your onboarding materials should explain your preferred communication channels and expected response times. But setting boundaries is just the first step. Enforcing them consistently is where the real magic happens. This doesn't mean being rigid or unfriendly. It means respectfully maintaining the professional standards you've established. For example, if a client phones you at 9 p.m. with a non-emergency request, you have every right to let it go to voicemail and respond the next morning during business hours. Your response could be warm, helpful, non-confrontational. Example could be, "Thank you for your message last night. I did not reply because it was outside of my business hours. I've looked at your request and I can start working on it by X date. In future, for the quickest response, please email during business hours." Simple as that. You've set the boundary, you were very professional, you were friendly, and there was not a single piece of aggression. When you maintain healthy boundaries, you protect your time, your energy, which allows you to do your best work for all of your clients. And it enables you to prevent burnout, which means you can sustain your career for the long term. And as you establish yourself as a professional rather than a service provider, more and more clients will come to you because you will be delivering more than what they ask or need consistently, and you will be able to help them with a higher quality service than just a normal service provider. The difference between a professional and a service provider is vast, and it's a very gray area which I will not be going into. But you can rest assured that once you are established as a professional, taking, for example, someone like Chris Doe from the Future, or he also has the Future Academy, his clients contact him because he has established himself in the market and he knows what to deliver, and his clients knows what he can deliver, and he is irreplaceable in what he delivers. Simple as that. But here's what's fascinating. Setting boundaries benefits the clients tremendously as well. When you have clear working hours, clients know exactly when they can reach you, eliminating uncertainty. When you define the scope clearly, clients understand what they're getting and can budget appropriately. When you limit revisions, it encourages clients to provide more thoughtful and consolidated feedback rather than piecemeal changes. Also, setting in place a feedback timeline lets clients know that they need to revert within a certain time frame if they want their project to move ahead smoothly. In fact, clients often report feeling more confident working with freelancers who have strong and clear boundaries. It signals professionalism and experience. I once had a client tell me that she prefers my way of working, and I am actually an anomaly compared to previous designers because my communication was clear. I said exactly what was happening when. I managed expectations. I told her what I would be able to deliver, how I will deliver it, and where I will deliver it. And this client came back with two follow-up projects after the first one was finished, because she knew what she was signing up for, rather than dealing with vague, empty promises. So now we're reaching the end of the episode, and we're going to put it all together. So these three elements, clear communication, expectation management, and boundaries, work together in a very clear and obvious way, but quite often it is overlooked because magic just happens. So how this would go through a typical project lifestyle would be: at the inquiry stage, clear communication means asking detailed questions to understand the client's needs. Managing expectations means being honest about what you can deliver within their timeline and budget. Setting boundaries means clearly stating your process and terms. During the proposal phase, clear communications means detailing exactly what's included in your services. Managing expectations means providing realistic timelines and milestones. And setting boundaries means specifying your payment terms and revision policy. Once the project begins, clear communication means regular updates and check-ins. Managing expectations means preparing clients for each phase of work. Setting boundaries means adhering to the scope and process you've established. At the feedback stage, clear communications means providing a structured format for clients to share their thoughts. Managing expectations means reminding them of the revision policy and guiding them toward constructive feedback. Setting boundaries means respectfully redirecting requests outside the project scope. And at the project completion, clear communication means delivering files in an organized, accessible way. Managing expectations means discussing what happens next. Setting boundaries means concluding the project professionally with clear next steps if they want to work together again. Now, this all sounds great in theory, right? But what about difficult situations? Let's go through a few scenarios. The client asks for work outside the original scope. Now, you have a couple of options. What a great solution. would be to reference your documented agreement and offer a separate proposal for additional work with new costing. You could phrase it as, I'd be happy to add those features, but since they weren't part of our original agreement, I'll send over a quote for the additional work. Simple. Again, professional, friendly. Scenario 2. Another one. The client needs a rush turnaround. We all know these happen quite often. Solution could be honest about what's possible and what the trade-offs might be. I understand this is urgent. I can prioritize your project, but it would require shifting other commitments and would include a rush fee of X amount. Alternatively, we could adjust the deliverables to meet your timeline without the additional cost. Or, if you do not have the capacity, you have every right to respond with, I understand your timelines are tight. Unfortunately, I do not have the capacity right now to accommodate you. And then you have multiple options afterwards. You can recommend adjusting the project if they can't wait for the work, or you can refer them to another designer who might be available. It's okay to share work with other designers. There's enough work to go around for everybody. Another scenario could be the client is very slow to provide feedback, causing the project delays. Build this possibility into your contract with a clause about project timelines, extending if feedback is delayed, reminding them gently when needed, or just a friendly reminder that to meet their launch date of X date, they will need feedback to be provided to you by certain time frame. In each of these scenarios, the solution comes back to our 3 principles. Communicate clearly about the situation, manage expectations about what's possible, and maintain the boundaries you've established. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to emphasize that mastering these skills is an ongoing journey. You'll get better with practice, and each client relationship will teach you something new. You will make mistakes as you go. I still make mistakes as I go along. But what's remarkable about these skills is that they create a truly win-win situation. You win by having more control over your work, the time you spend on your work, your stress levels, and the things that you do during the day that drain your energy. You only have so much energy capacity during the day. And managing expectations, communicating clearly, setting boundaries, limits the amount of drain that work places on your energy. Your clients win by getting better results, a smoother process, and the confidence that comes from working with a true professional. In the end, this isn't just about making your freelance life easier, though it certainly does. It's about delivering the highest quality work possible and by creating the conditions for the success from the beginning. It is the exact opposite of when you are set up to fail, because you are setting yourself up for success. And I do apologize for the buzzwords. I do not like them, but I do tend to use them. So with that, thank you for listening. And I hope that this helps you in your endeavors moving forward.